So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Apple iPhone 8 4 years later. Now this phone does have, an Apple A11 Bionic chipset for a quick refresh, 2 gigabytes of RAM. It did bring wireless charging to the iPhone, and this one also did come with a 4K at 60 camera. Now this was the first year Apple did do that, so it does have a really good camera still. It doesn't have the night mode, but it does have a decent camera. This also brought a glass back to the back of the iPhone, and it did bring wireless charging on board. This is also what the iPhone SE 2020 is based on, and there's a good reason. This phone still feels pretty light, it's pretty classic, and it still feels pretty premium overall. Now, this thing launched on September 12, 2017. It became available on September 22nd, 2017. You can see the prices for this right now range from $189 to around $200. Sometimes you can find it cheaper, and you might even get this phone handed down from somebody who upgraded, maybe. So let me know your case with the iPhone 8. Did you have one? Are you going to get one secondhand? Because it still has a couple updates left. It will be getting iOS 15, and it's still running quite good. This also brought True Tone to the iPhone as well, so in this gold color. I'm not sure how many people like that gold color, but it was still a nice addition to this iPhone as well. Now, talking about the body of this phone, it does come in very thin here at 7.3 millimeters. It did have a Touch ID scanner on board and some pretty chunky bezels, but overall the weight of this device was 148 grams. It was wrapped around Gorilla Glass on the front and the back, aluminum frame. At the bottom you could see there was no headphone jack, that went away a while ago. Overall, just the weight of it, very easy to one hand this phone, as is the iPhone SE 2020. So this is one of those compact, easy to use smartphones, right up there with the iPhone 12 mini. You can see right here, super lightweight. I can hold this thing with 2 fingers, no problem. So buttons are tactile as well. So if you're looking for something that still feels premium, but you don't want to pay much for it, I think the iPhone 8 is actually still a decent overall phone. Shout out to those people who are still rocking with the iPhone 8 right now. Let me know your experience, how it's held up over the experience of using. Have you cracked the back? Have you cracked the screen? Let us know, let the community know down below. Now, on the topic of display, Apple iPhone 8 did feature a 4.7-inch Retina LCD IPS display. Now, this thing did reach 625 nits, which is basically the same that even the iPhone 12 reaches to this day. Now, this phone did feature True Tone as well as dark mode night shift as you're used to, but True Tone was the big deal for the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, which made the screen a little bit more accurate depending on the environment you're in for easier comfort on the eyes. And you'll see even other phones copy the feature like that on their platforms as well. This phone had pretty decently sharp text at 326 ppi, but being that it's on a 4.7-inch display, you're never really going to think about it being not sharp enough. It was fine. Video was in the 16:9 format for this phone, so that means it's a little bit more wide than these tall, skinny, narrow phones that you see these days. So even at 4.7 inches, it's pretty comfortable to use this. It doesn't feel as small as something like a 4-inch iPhone SE from 2016 or a 5S. Now, when it comes to the overall smoothness of the panel, we're not looking at something that is 90 hertz or anything like that, but due to Apple's efficiency with the iOS platform, I found this phone to feel very smooth even now in 2021. And you can see with these wallpapers, the overall color is not overly saturated, but it still has a good amount of contrast. It still has a good amount of overall, display quality. I just would say it doesn't touch an OLED. It's still decent. Now, software wise, iOS 14.7.1 is on board, and this is exciting because this phone is going to get iOS 15. Like, how could you not enjoy the fact that this phone is going on 4 years old, and it still runs software that's very similar, if not the same type of experience as what somebody on a $1,000 plus iPhone right now is experiencing. This is one of the critical reasons why, Apple continues to sell so many phones, is that, they have such long software support, and it continues to remain this way. Even the camera features are pretty similar. They're not quite the same as the Pro series, the newer iPhones, but still, you're getting an overall generally the same experience, which is a good thing. If you've been using this phone or you picked it up on the low, it's going to last you still quite a while. And the smoothness would fool you into thinking that this phone is not old at all. It's just a little bit of a different type compared to, a 12 Pro. Like, this phone performs pretty darn well for the average consumer or the average user, probably still wouldn't actually make an A11 Bionic chipset here in this phone choke. The performance in the day-to-day, as you can see, just runs through editing like it's nothing, can run through applications like it's nothing. And while this hardware doesn't seem to impress many people anymore, what does impress is how fluid the performance is. The iPhone SE 2020 is quite a bit faster here, especially technically, but I'm gonna bet the average consumer probably wouldn't even be able to push that phone either. Battery life on this phone, depending on your capacity. Now, I did trade my older iPhone 8, which had less capacity, for this one, so this one's back to 100. But the overall battery life on this wasn't super impressive, but it wasn't terrible. Like, it could get you through a day with low power mode tweaked on, as well as not overusing, you know, certain things like the camera and 4K 60, as well as doing too much heavy lifting like gaming and stuff like that. The 8 Plus was the phone for the power user back in these days. However, the iPhone 8 is for the regular user. It can still make it through a day with, I'm not going to say heavy, but definitely some light use. Okay, so discussing the camera, this is a single 12 megapixel camera, f1.8. It's a 28 millimeter lens. And when you have decent lighting, this phone is capable of producing some very good detail. You know, you would actually be hard pressed to see the differences between this and an iPhone 12. If you are just putting it in the same light, you focus it properly, I think it would be pretty difficult. You know, you might see a little bit different in color, but definitely this is a pretty competitive camera even right now. Apple's been making good cameras for a while. They've just been slightly upgrading them every year. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you can't, you know, use wide angle and all that stuff. That'll blow away the iPhone 8. But what I'm saying is, in good light, it's still a really good camera here for iPhone 8, at least for basic usage. And it's nice that it has these features like panel, square, and, you know, slow-mo, all that stuff that you're used to. 4K 60. The front camera is where you definitely notice this is not great anymore. 7 megapixels, f2.2, can only do 1080p. It's just super average here on the front. But the overall rear camera, besides not having a night mode, is pretty good for, you know, the price you would pay to get one of these days. Definitely very acceptable. Now, the audio quality, no headphone jack, but have a listen for yourself and judge it and let me know.
Welcome you to Master Your Technology. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at what is on my iPhone for the month of September 2021. Now you can see here I am using the iPhone 12 Pro, and the reason why I'm using the smaller 12 Pro right now is the iPhone 12 Pro Max, number one, is actually recording this video, if you guys were wondering. In addition,
and discussing Touch ID, this is actually still very quick, still very enjoyable here in 2021. You know, this does have a big bezel to compensate to have Touch ID, but at the same time, we kind of wanted to see that on the 13. Hopefully Apple still surprises. I highly doubt that's going to happen, but that would be great. You can see phone call quality on here wasn't as good as the iPhone 7. This does not have Qualcomm modems, so it wasn't the best reception, wasn't the best overall if you were out of metropolitan areas. But the iPhone 8, should you consider this phone right now? And the answer to that question is probably not. I wouldn't go out of my way looking for this unless you're looking for a iPhone on the low. These are still very fast, they're still very decent, but they're nothing too special anymore. I would just go for the iPhone SE 2020. But to answer the question, how's it held up over 4 years? Very well. As long as you kept this case protected, it's getting updates, it's still decently fast, still decent camera. Let me know your experience with the iPhone 8. Thumbs up if you haven't already, and subscribe for more. Nick here. Be sure to be well. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.